you start with a problem.
Yeah.
So understand the problem that you want to solve, and that has not changed. So
Right.
I think many people in technology try to start with a solution because they have a great idea of what technology can do. But you should go back to understand the problem that you want to solve, or the client need. If you have a client or a customer, what is really the need that you want to address?
Our guest today is the definition of boss lady in power. She speaks business and understands technology. Her mission is achieving a better collaboration between business and technology from the board down. Her experience as a C-suite executive and a non-executive director enabled her to bring better technology governance to the boardroom. Welcome to the AOU podcast, Entrepreneur Leadership in Africa. Today we're going to be talking about the relevance of technology to entrepreneurs in addressing the impact of COVID-19. And with that said, our hearts and prayers go out to those who may be in need, that maybe need a bit of support. Do not forget to, social distance, keep washing your hands. Please be as sanitary as you possibly can. And, we'll get through this together. Now, dabbling into her experience, she is the founder and principal consultant of Acoyvis, I believe. I hope I haven't butchered the name. And provides governance, change, management, and technology advisory in Africa and Europe. Clients include global Fortune 500 companies, as well as family-owned and medium-sized firms. I mean, just a plethora of experience that we can look forward to hearing from today. All right, then. So first of all, thank you so much for being with us today.
It's a pleasure, Savannah.
Yeah, I've just read about your experience and a bit more about you, and I'm in actual awe.
Why?
There's so much here. Like, you are more or less like an embodiment of, boss ladies in power. So I'm honored to be a part of this podcast as well.
Okay, it's a great pleasure to talk to you. So, but you also will have recognized that it took a while to go, to accomplish what I did. So it's a long history of career, and I learned in recent years that the most relevant are actually the last 10 years. And I agree with that, because the world is changing so fast. And the last 10 years, I'm actually working in advisory. So I help large corporates and middle and small and medium-sized enterprises to improve effectively the communication between their technology people and their business people. And of course, I draw on my previous experience, and my previous experience is in consulting. I've worked with Accenture, and I've worked in a couple of very senior executive roles. I was a CIO for a public sector organization, and I was vice president corporate strategy with Lufthansa Systems. So obviously this all helps me now to give advice. But most recently, I've actually advised corporates in Europe and in Africa on how to improve the collaboration and communication between business and technology. I do this from the board down. So I myself have served on corporate boards, and I know how difficult it can be to kind of get the communication going between people who speak kind of a technology lingo that is not familiar to many senior executives. And I also help projects or department heads who have like the same mission of kind of getting technology adopted in an organization.
All right. So that goes perfectly into telling us what your experience has been like and who you are as a person within the corporate industry. So maybe you can tell us something that we can't find on the internet about you.
Oh, what you can't find on the internet. Okay, if we stay with the theme of technology and business, what I actually don't like, and sometimes I'm put into a category of tech people. I don't like to be a tech person. I'm someone who is kind of crossing the boundaries between industries and technology and business constantly. And I find, in general terms, I don't like it that the society is split into tech and non-tech people. I think technology impacts all our lives. And to kind of use a phrase that is now used in the context of the pandemic of COVID-19, we are all in this together. So nobody will kind of escape technology. So why should we split its society into tech and non-tech people? So I don't like to do that. And I like to help people who are a bit more distant from tech. And I like to help people who are deep in tech to kind of get out of it a bit and talk to people who maybe have a problem understanding what they are talking about.
All right, so that goes perfectly into my next question. Why do you think technology is hugely relevant into a business, and what critical areas about a business necessitate the use of technology?
Okay, I think the major element or concepts that have been impacted with the emerging of technology are that there are three actually. It's distance. We can cover distances in a way that we couldn't cover them before. And since you have looked at my career in any case, I can actually remember a time without email.
Right.
You couldn't talk to someone who was in the US unless you spent a fortune on a very, very expensive phone call.
Yeah.
So we can cover distance. I can talk to you while you are in Kenya and while I'm in London.
Yeah.
Speed is the other concept that has changed. We are now used to getting everything in this instant or in the next few hours. And this was very different without technology. The third one is, and this is more relevant going forward, is depth. We can also now penetrate topics in much more depth as we could before.
Yeah.
With that, I mean, we can now analyze. We have, like, to keep it on the more technology level, we have navigational data which would help us improve logistics. But we also have healthcare data that we didn't have before, like about our own bodies. We all wear a watch that tracks what calories we consumed a day, how many steps we did a day, how many hours we slept a day, how much screen time we had a day. This is a level of depth that was impossible before technology. Putting this into the context of business, I think there are different levels of impact also. There are businesses that are effectively only technology. I mean, they didn't exist in that state before. For example, online gaming. There was just no online gaming before technology. There were games, but you needed to sit in front of someone.
Yeah.
So they really thrive on technology only. But then there are others which are industries which are just severely disrupted. For example, the taxi industry with Uber or with Kobo 360 in Nigeria, which helps truck drivers to get more information on where they go, or with Yego in Rwanda, where the cab driver industry or any kind of mobility is hugely impacted and disrupted. And then there are industries where you think, well, there is not really much of a change. If you go, for example, for arts or like other creativity driven industries, but still these industries need marketing. They need their accounting done. They, in many cases, use digital media. So they might not be driven by technology, but to excel and to sell in their field, I think they make use of technology. And it's important to understand that I think everyone kind of has exposure to technology today. And some people find it easier to embrace it than others.
All right. Great. So, obviously, COVID-19 is impacting the way we live and work. In a quick assessment, how has the world adapted to the various technologies available to mitigate the challenges brought about by this pandemic? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think there's an obvious one, right? We are using Zoom suddenly much more often, and many people who have never used it before suddenly use it for the first time. So we are trying to create social proximity while we stay physically apart, which is now like a requirement. So this is an easy example for how technology is kind of coming into our lives. And I find also more and more people who have like shied away from this before feel that they lose too much contact if they don't engage using this kind of like social media or conference calls and video call technology. I find other technologies that are quicker adapted now are probably in the logistics and supply chain, because there is a lot of disruption happening with the pandemic and lots of these industries trying to catch up. Banking will probably benefit because digital payments are becoming much more necessary, because you can't just go somewhere, and also in some cases it seems to have proven that that cash actually carries the virus, so you try to avoid cash. And many businesses now try to actually ban cash. I've seen many, and I would not have expected them to do it before. But what we should also be aware of is that other people try to exploit this trend of going more digital. So we need to be more aware of cyber security and cyber risks, because people just exploit the unawareness and lack of experience of some of the people using social media, for example. And then also there are people who kind of really lose in this pandemic, and they feel kind of disadvantaged and try to kind of grab opportunities that normally they're probably, normally they would not have done bad things, but now they don't see a choice. So we all need to be more careful than we were before.
Okay, so with that said, obviously we're seeing a lot of companies take this as an opportunity to sort of even go more digital. How about those who are struggling to either catch up or fight, or start with the basic steps? So my question is, how should businesses and entrepreneurs start this journey towards digital innovation in their enterprises?
I think this is actually something that has not changed.
Right.
I think you start with a problem.
Yeah.
So understand the problem that you want to solve, and that has not changed. So I think many people in technology try to start with a solution because they have a great idea of what technology can do. But you should go back to understand the problem that you want to solve, or the client need. If you have a client or a customer, what is really the need that you want to address? And really understand that problem in depth. Talk to a client, go do some field work, get some data on the industry or the problem that you want to address. And this can be a new product. It can also be improvements to what your customers experience today. It can also be just being more efficient, and many companies will suffer economically from this pandemic, because they have to shut down for a few weeks, or they can't help all their clients in the way that they wanted to serve them. So cost cutting might actually be an objective. So get your operations to be more lean, and this can be achieved with technology. But find the problem you want to solve first before you head on with forward with technology.
Okay, so speaking of problems and problem solvers, rather, so which areas in our societies currently need these solutions the most? Because everybody's trying to look for innovative digital solutions, obviously with the rise of the digital economy. So which areas in a society do you think really need these solutions?
I think many people currently are surprised that actually the healthcare sector is suffering a lot. We all think they are now in most demand, which is true to some elements of it, like hospitals. But all other medical services, doctors, surgeries, like the small ones, they actually don't service other than emergencies. Yes, babies are delivered and bones are mended, but otherwise you don't go for a checkup. Because you want to avoid the personal contact. So I think one industry that would benefit is healthcare, by allowing more remote diagnostics, more virtual attendance by doctors, so that we can continue being served while we keep a physical distance. And a lot of people currently get unemployed, actually, if they work in healthcare, because they can't continue serving their patients. Another, if you want to call it an industry or a sector would be government, from my point of view.
Definitely,
because if you would kind of take a 30,000 feet altitude in the last, 20 years, you could get the impression that large corporates have more influence than governments because they kind of govern the world to some extent, the very big ones, the Amazons and Googles.
Right,
and
yeah.
with the pandemic, governments are actually claiming back some of their influence. But they are the least prepared digitally because they lag behind in adopting technology. So I think governments really need to catch up. And they will also, because they feel that they probably looking back, see that they could have managed this pandemic better if they would have better means of communications, faster decision making, more data available on the pandemic and on their population in general. So I think the government sector would be a very important sector to kind of put more focus on digitizing their processes and the services that they offer. A third one I want to mention, while we need to kind of look at the short term and how we navigate the immediate circumstances, we should not forget that in the longer run, our problems pretty much remain the same. So we will still face climate change.
Yeah.
Even though currently it kind of in the media, it doesn't seem to happen any longer. But I think environmental services would benefit a lot from more digitization. With that, I mean measuring pollution, water and air quality, and find the people who pollute and kind of measure the quality so that we really can keep track of climate change and try to make the best of the situation we have.
All right, so some tech-savvy businesses have still been forced to close down due to COVID-19. What advice would you give these entrepreneurs and business owners as they think of their next steps?
I mean, this is it's a very sad situation, and I think the uncertainty that comes with that, not just for the business but also for the person, the entrepreneur, is a very challenging situation for many, and. To this extent, I think we all have not experienced this before. So even in my much longer career, I've never seen this before.
Right.
And uncertainty does something to us that some experts call a status quo bias. We very much feel we are in the moment now and we forget to look beyond. And we feel if we are feeling frightened, sometimes we are also paralyzed. So we continue to look at the status quo without kind of distancing ourselves from the status quo and saying, okay, let's look beyond that. So what can we do about the situation with the skills and capabilities that we have? And we obviously are strong, otherwise we would not have made it so far. So without losing sight of what needs to be done immediately, I suggest that entrepreneurs look back to what the value proposition was that they started with.
Okay.
So they should remember, or they will remember, what was the reason I started this business in the first place. And then if they look at this, they will see that some of the value proposition either still holds or it doesn't. Yeah. So if it still holds, find a way to make it work. And if this is mostly a cash flow problem, try to fix the cash flow problem and consider this to be a question of a few months, not a few years. Yeah, is my recommendation. And find a way to deliver the value that you initially wanted really to deliver. So it's what I call resilience. You have a strong belief that this is a value that you can create. So develop a product that can deliver this value, and don't be thrown off track because of a pandemic. Stick to your beliefs and find a way to address it. And finding this way requires you to kind of quickly make decisions about the immediate time, but also develop scenarios to kind of navigate this uncertainty. And it's a bit like being in a fog. You don't know what's beyond the fog, but you can have ideas of what might emerge, and you need to continuously update your thinking on what might be in the medium-term future. But you might also be an entrepreneur who finds, well, my value proposition really doesn't work any longer with this situation being changed so much. It could be that your prospect clients are so badly impacted that you don't expect them to be in need of your product in the future. Could be. But then I suggest that don't feel to be a victim. I would very closely try to understand the current situation and listen to people without kind of judging too much. You know what I mean? It's really get the facts and don't realize what you can change and what you can't change. And if you realize there's things that you can't change, go on and find another way to deploy your skills and the capabilities you have to generate value. I would look for opportunities that you may have not looked at before, because we have never been in this situation. So there might be something new, even more exciting out there that you could pursue as an idea for your clients or your products.
So you've tackled a bit on how to manage uncertainty and, you know, what next steps some businesses should take. Maybe you have a few more pointers that you may add on how to manage uncertainty due to like limited number of scenarios, and, you know, they can only plan and prepare for so much. So what further advice would you give them?
Yeah, I think there is actually even some wording that will have some find the ears of technology people. We should, I think, move towards more thinking of probabilities rather than having like binary outcomes. So it's not like this, the world will move this way or this way. So in the end, it might at some point be like this, but for now, standing in this fog that I mentioned earlier, we should think of how likely is this outcome and this outcome. And we should really try to understand the current situation as good as we can,
right,
with making an effort to really understand what is happening and listening to people, even if we don't agree with what they say, because they might have more influence than us, to understand what the scenarios are that might play out in the future. And then there is probability in different scenarios and different developments that will kind of enlighten our thinking on where our business might go. And I believe thinking in opportunities is better than thinking in kind of these are threats and worries and problems, which are also, they are most often related to the immediate situation. And I suggest looking forward might be the better way to address the situation. And I find this challenging myself, don't get me wrong, right? I also, you know, I am still receiving refunds from 3 different airlines and you know, you can really get entangled in the current situation. But looking beyond that is what keeps me sane also in after weeks of being locked down in one place, which is very unusual for me.
Maybe you can highlight further on how we can ensure proper personal management with that, because obviously it's very uncertain time, and, you know, moments like this in a pandemic, lives get disrupted. So do you have any personal key tips that you have, you know, applied in your time being in like maybe quarantine or isolation that, you know, sort of maintained your personal management?
Yeah, well, let's start with some of the words that you used, and I've used them also. So I actually don't feel isolated.
Okay.
I'm not in quarantine. I'm in a country where there is a lockdown, yes. Mm-hmm. So I can leave the house only for certain reasons, but I don't feel isolated.
Okay.
And I also find that social distancing is actually a misnomer.
Okay.
What we are practicing is physical distancing. And we should be aware that words have a lot of power over us. So we should be aware of what the words are that we use. So what we should try to achieve while we have physical distance is actually social proximity.
Okay.
This is why I find... sometimes, you know, I feel I need to speak with someone like a friend I trust, where I can speak honestly, and then we meet for video chat. We actually drink a glass of wine together. You can do that. So you can create social proximity while we are physically distant.
Yeah.
But words are very powerful. Several friends have asked me in which place I'm kind of hold back. I'm not hold back anywhere, you know. Yeah. I can actually move around where I am. So I try not to use negative terms for the current situation, because it makes your mind think even more negative about the situation. Make the best of it.
Yeah.
And you can have a lot of social proximity with a lot of people. But what I also find is, yes, I can meet people on the screen and see their face and their smile and their eyes and drink a glass of wine.
Yeah.
But there should, for me at least, also a limit to screen time. So I know that depending on the generation you belong to, you might find 18 hours of screen time perfectly normal.
Yeah.
I don't. So I try to give myself some hour a day or hours a day, and maybe also a day a week,
right,
where I try to limit my screen time.
Okay.
Because we still have a beautiful nature around us. We might have some people around us where we are like living within the same house. So spend time with the people that you are around with.
Yeah.
I also find managing slowing down my thinking helps. I do yoga.
Right.
You can do, I know I have friends who don't like the physical aspect of yoga, they do meditation. But in this kind of situation where there is a lot of fear and uncertainty, our brain sometimes goes astray, like in ways we don't necessarily want. So we have the strength to refocus.
Right.
So we should try to make an effort to do that. And I do yoga classes online. You find lots of for free YouTube yoga classes, YouTube meditation. This is all available if you know how to make use of it. I also find it's important to reach out to people who matter to you. So even if they are not constantly online, make a phone call. And the strongest means you have to connect with someone else's mind is your voice.
Right.
So if you have a choice between sending a message even to people where they are used to WhatsApp messages or whatever, if you want to really connect with someone, if you you are even worried about someone, use your voice. Your voice is your strongest instrument if you want to really, really connect to someone. And there is lots of research about this. So it's also helpful to see someone. So if you have internet connection which is good enough, use video. But just talking to someone, even if it's a recorded, like a podcast, if it's a recorded voice, you connect better than in writing.
Right.
So these are things that I try to do to manage myself, because we have influence on other people, either as business leaders, advisors, entrepreneurs. I think if we want to have a positive impact on others, we need to be healthy ourselves in the first place. And this is what I'm trying to do for myself, and I hope many other people do the same, so that we emerge from this crisis situation actually stronger, because we know how to handle this the next time. And I would always suggest that we see the opportunity in a situation and not the problems, even though we have to address them. But look forward, look beyond that, and see also what you have learned in this time. And there is a lot we learn, and we don't recognize right now. We don't give ourselves credit for how well we actually manage.
Wow. So you've dropped so many gems here. And, it's advice upon advice. And, just to finish us off, what encouraging words would you have for our listeners so that they can embody resilience at this point in time and in other trying moments as well?
Yes, I would connect with people who can help you go through this challenging situation, and people who are positive, who can help you see the opportunity in this crisis, or opportunities, and how this can strengthen you actually.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. So much for taking time out of your schedule to be with us.
It was a pleasure, Savannah.
So we hope to chat with you in the near future, or on and off the podcast.